Hello there, sword friends. This is going to be a quick chat about this pretty sword right here. So some time ago I did a review on a Michael Tinker Pearce sword. This as well is a sword by Michael Tinker Pearce. From what I can tell, it has an inscribed date on it, which is somewhere down around these parts, that says 2009, but I don't know that I can get the camera to focus on it. Anyway, I was hesitant to do a review on this one because it's one that I plan on probably just reselling. It's been fun to play with and experience, but it's just not my bag of swords. That doesn't really... Anyway, whatever. It's been a long day. My analogies are off. Nevertheless, this one is just going to go up for sale. Cool as it is, it's just one that I'm probably going to sell and not play with. So why talk about it in a video? I suppose I should get to the point. It demonstrates a lot of refinement in 2009, which was better than the sword I reviewed, which was made sometime much later. I don't actually recall when that other sword was made. But this one is better in terms of a lot of different factors. One, the crossguard. So this looks like it was made. I can tell it has some kind of ripples in the surface that give it the impression of being hand ground, but it's even. It has some shapely design to it. It looks like it's been antiqued. And I don't see any kind of canter or oddness to it. The pommel as well looks like it is even Steven in terms of its application. And the finishing work on the pommel as well as the kind of crossguard here appear to be very similar. They've been blackened and antiqued somewhat, but nevertheless they match and they look overall pretty good. This one is a hex-nut construction, so it's done with this little nut that's able to be removed, but despite that, it has this nice kind of ring sound to it. It's a very tight thing. It doesn't really rattle or anything like that, and I really love, I don't know, I get a kick out of swords that do that. So anyway, it's very well constructed. Even though it has a hex nut assembly, it's very tight. I swung it around some. I've cut a little bit with it, not really a lot, and it's held up and done the job. The edge is not as refined, I suppose, as I would like, but though I got it secondhand, it's not something I can really harp on. This seam as well was something that I criticized in the last Michael Tinker Pearce sword that I had, because it was kind of floppy and jagged in some spots. This is refined and smooth. I mean, I don't know about refined. You can certainly make out the seam and edge. It's not perfect, but it fits well in my hand. It feels very soft. My hands, I guess, I don't know, they're tacky, or maybe this is, you can hear. It's a little sticky sounding, but it's not actually tape. It feels kind of like suede. It's a very soft, kind of supple leather feeling on my hand. The other thing that I noted was the crossguard, and if you look here, again, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's a step much closer than the other one that I had, in that the seam is very close to the blade down here. It's quite well done. Now, also in terms of how well this sword works in terms of ripples or the finishing, as you recall, the previous one looked like I don't know, well, it was very wavy, and this one is certainly also pretty wavy, but it is better. The ripples, while abundant, are not undulating, I suppose, as much. They don't kind of bounce, and they I don't know. It's not that the frequency is different, but the amplitude is, if you kind of get what I'm saying. So the delivery is better, and it's got also a very kind of high polish on it. It's got a little bit of oil on it, so it might not be showing up. It might show a little stain. A fuller termination is in the same spot. Looks like it's in the same way. Geometry looks pretty good. And again, the thing that I feel in this sword that I felt in the other Tinker sword, while this is a different geometry, a different type, immediately in my hands it feels intentional. It feels like this is supposed to move the way it is. I feel like I have a lot of point control. It feels like I can move the blade around. If I were thrusting with the sword, it feels like I have the ability to do that with some dexterity, even though I'm not necessarily practiced at it. And in the chop, it feels like it has the momentum to cut, but that it's not so cumbersome that I can't start or stop it. And as I think of this kind of arming sword as a one-handed, maybe with a shield at the same time, I feel like I could deflect. I could use this as a defense and offensive weapon at the same time, and it feels very, very nimble in my hand. I mean, generally speaking, a sword like this, has a heft to it that makes it feel a little, I don't know, a little clunky to move around, and this does not. It feels very comfortable, and that's again something that I've seen in just every single piece that I've held that Mr. Pearce has made gives me this feeling of deliberately made, thought out. It performs in my hand like it should, like somebody thought about it, or whoever was making it was awful darn good at how it was supposed to feel in the user's hands at the end of the day. And I get that from this as well. Now, this one also has these kind of neato looking, I don't know exactly what you'd call them, these little kind of stencil etchings on them. Don't know really exactly what to make of that. It was likely done by the previous owner of said sword. And anyway, yeah, it's a cool looking sword. The thing that I wanted to point out, though, is I would probably use this as a supplemental bit of information to showcase another example of Mr. Pearce's work from an earlier period, a different time. But generally speaking, smiths evolve. They get more experience in their time. This was made earlier than the blade I had, but I think in terms of the execution on the refinement details, even though Mr. Pearce says that that's not his focus, this is a step above the blade that I had previously in polish and delivery and execution, the waves and the cross guard and how, but one thing that was consistent between this sword and that sword is that they both feel very, very good in the hand. They both feel like whoever the hell made this really knew how a sword was supposed to feel. So often I'll pick up a sword from Windlass or another manufacturer, and they feel clumsy, they feel off, they feel like the balance is too far up or too far down, or it favors one thing completely over the other. And when I say one thing over the other, I mean it's aesthetically pretty and handles like a beast. Or if it handles, it's just a chopper. It doesn't have any control over the thrust, or it has some control over the thrust and just becomes a clumsy, weird mess when you start moving it around to chop or deflect or actually move the sword around. In this case, as I move the sword, even though my camera angle is not going to really favor me moving it around a lot, I don't feel exhausted in my arm. I feel like I can move it around. I could hold this for a while before I experience fatigue, which is something that is not necessarily always the case. So in terms of delivery, there's a lot of consistency there, though this one has a little bit more attention to detail in terms of refinement. And given that those were my criticisms in the previous review, I thought this was a great example of something that shows that the man is more than capable. That was probably clear if you've looked at any photos online, or if you've done any more research, or you've seen other examples than the one I showed. But if you haven't, here's one. And I suppose proof's in the pudding. This isn't pudding, but if it were, it would show that it's better pudding. All right, anyway, that's all I have for you. I hope it's been mildly helpful. And as always, cheers and thanks for watching.